What about some crazy Spag Heddy style dubstep? Let's jump into it. Okay, so these are the bases, these are the sounds what we are talking about today. Pretty nice sounds, but before we jump into it, let me encourage you to have a look into the descriptions for the presets. The main bass is built up by two layers. This is the first layer. This sounds, by the way, pretty much the same. I only changed several stuff in Serum itself, and if I'm right, I just moved the warp mode. I don't remember on which oscillator, oscillator A or B, but if I activate the modulation stuff and if I add every lane what I modulated here, maybe we will be able to find it out. So probably this is not the case here. I need to go into Serum and see that the bend on oscillator A stands here. The synchronize is on oscillator A is a little higher, and on the second sound is a little lower. Yes, I believe this is the only difference here. Let me compare. Yeah, sort of. So basically, the only thing I did here is I changed the synchronize warping mode, sync warping mode on oscillator B to achieve a little different sound. And by the way, we can test it. So let's see if I just play only this sound. Yeah, basically this is it. So it is very simple. I don't remember why I duplicated this channel, but to be honest, this is the easiest way to do, because you know your sound and your project won't confuse you, and it won't be so muddy, and you will be able to see everything clearly. Anyway, the second layer is again a very important thing, because you know this is basically the body of the sound, but on itself it sounds a little weak because it only contains some sort of top frequencies, but we need some very growly and evil middle bass frequencies, or well, middle and low frequencies. So I added another layer, another Serum, and it sounds like this. It's a regular, boring, very boring dubstep bass. And these are the two layers added together, creating this very, very nice Spag Heddy style dubstep sound. Okay, so let's jump into this top or the main layer. Let me deactivate all the effects I added. So this way you will be able to find out what is going on here. So we don't need the sub layer and don't need oscillator B, and on itself it sounds like this. Oops, let's solo this track. So this is a pretty stupid sound, because we really need oscillator B to add that characteristic sound to it. So I would say this is the main stuff here. And actually this sound on itself without any filtering sounds very static. I mean, no some sort of pitch glide, which I really miss. So I added this flange layer, and when I move and activate the modulation on the cutoff with pretty huge resonance, it always creates some pitch movements and, you know, some detuning on the phases, because you will see that it is crazy how much peaks and notches it creates. So it definitely distorts the pitch and distorts the phases of the sound, and this is why you hear that sound gliding from an upper tone to a lower tone, like wow, 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 wow. Because without a filter, it's just eh. So it already washes the sound into a little more noisier tone and already gives some pretty nice pitch bending to it, which is a random thing. I didn't want to control it, just adding some pretty nice, not boring, but interesting pitch movements in. And going to, activate the sub. There's nothing interesting here, only some sub movement. And I didn't use the noise because this sound is already very noisy, but I, try to play around a little with it. So it is not important to have, but I added some distortions on diode 2, and I modulated the mix because, I didn't want to have too much distorted overtones on this section of the modulation because, I use LE41 to activate and modulate lots of things here, oscillator levels, wavetable positions, warping mode and stuff. And I just wanted to have the distorted tone only at the top of the modulation where, the filters and everything just opens up and creates that very screechy tone. And I also use the built-in low-pass filter, and I filter it before the distortion. This is why it says pre. And also I modulated the drive again. This is a regular stuff what I do in the EQ. I create peaks, which create some wobbly kind of tone, but at certain frequencies I needed to cut to get rid of that very annoying middle bass frequencies. And an OTT like always, and I added the chorus too to make the sound even washier, even a little noisier. Now this is all. Now let me tell you another thing here. The Yeoman chorus preset is pretty great if you want to create rhythm basses. This is not a classic rhythm bass. It is more like a dubstep kind of stuff, but I tried it to, and I started making rhythm basses, then this stuff came out. So anyway, it's a pretty cool sound, and the Yeoman preset adds some very nice tones to it. It also adds some detuned sound to it. I use another Serum FX only as a chorus and an additional chorus, as you can see here. And actually what I try to do here is I try to copy the settings from the Ableton built-in chorus and apply it to Serum chorus. And as you can see, the rate is at about 9.25 Hertz. Now it is a little higher. No, it is about around 9. And I try to copy it, but if you want to use it, if you want to apply modulation to it, you definitely want to use an external instrument and send every MIDI data as it says, MIDI 2 to Rhythm 1 channel. This is Rhythm 1 channel, and to Serum FX. So this is the easiest way. If you send the MIDI data to Serum FX using the external instrument plugin, and click on Note Latch, so Serum FX will get all the information it needs to activate any modulation here. So I use the note modulator on the delay and on the depth, so the higher you go, the more you will change these parameters, and it is a pretty cool thing to have. Anyway, this is a second chorus, and the Yeoman Ableton built-in chorus plugin with the Yeoman preset is the third chorus. So this is what I did here, and also I used a gate to get rid of the noisy tails, what I just deactivated, but now let's activate it again. I added the saturator to make the sound saturated and louder. A phaser, it doesn't do too much, it's not even moving. And an EQ to boost a little on the highs and on the middle highs, cut a little on the middle highs, an OTT, nothing fancy here, another saturation, but this time just a very, very slight drive, and the limiter at the end. Now I use this utility tool to add some side chaining to it. I just move the gain knob on every hit of the kick and the snare. So it might sound and it might look crazy, but this is the easiest way for me to sidechain stuff. I don't know why I like this, because probably I can see everything and I can manually look after all the things what is happening in the project. And another EQ, which is not very important here because I just boost it on the highs. Now let's check. This is the same as I described before. I just moved the synchronize button. So the second version of this sound is the same, but this regular crappy dubstep bass. So let me describe this to you guys. So let's hop into Serum and let me deactivate all this stuff and the effects, so you will be able to hear the sounds and the wavetables on themselves. So this is This is the sound what I use here. Let me disable the other effects too. This is it on itself. It is a simple FM1 which comes from, it is 64 dubstep, not presets but wavetables from my friend Camille, and it is the 11th instance of it. It looks like an I-has kick wavetable but with some tweaks, with some mirror warping mode or something. So I use oscillator B. It is from the Bass House Cymatics table, so it is called set cover, but it is not really important because, you know, the purpose of this is to have some pretty nice overtones, which I want to use as an FM modulator on oscillator A. And oscillator B warping mode has the mirror mode, mirror warping mode, but altogether, I mean, when I use FM, they sound this. So I added the sub too. And the funny thing comes here, because with the filter, I use a ring modulation, and I had to activate, and always, I recommend you always activate the pitch tracking button here and find the best way and the best sound by tweaking the filter cutoff, you know, where the frequency of the ring modulation filter and your root node always at the same value. So this is what I did here. So this is how it sounds. It adds some very, very nice tones to it. Now hopping to the effects, I add some distortions. And the pre-filter on LP mode, low pass mode, just creates some very, very nice wobble effect to it. We don't have those noisy tails at these sections of the modulation. Some EQ with the same stuff what I used in the previous sound. It makes the sound a little more evil. And OTT. And I use another filter in all pass mode to give some noisy, give some more noise to it. Okay, this is it. I tried to add another chorus, but I decided to not use that. And with the effects, I use another gate. Basically, from this point, it is the same again. Another saturation to make the sound even louder, a phaser. Not very drastic. The final effect is an EQ. Get rid of the very lows and the very highs because, you know, I didn't want to conflict with the top layer. Plus, I use another plus I use a separate sub layer, and I didn't want to conflict, especially on the low end, but I didn't want to conflict with the high end also either. And OTT, saturator again, limiter, and an EQ. So this is it. Altogether, they sound pretty well, I believe. At least for me, it sounds pretty good. So this was it. I hope you enjoyed this. And if you want to download these presets, have a look into the descriptions.